How specifically do we create our own contrast? Is it right down to how people look and their personality traits and what they say and do, or just overall moods and attitudes?
What people are you talking about? The people who are surrounding you?
Yeah, you're walking around in daily life and you've thought about something and somebody comes into your experience and you wonder, well, why are they here? Why is this particular person here? Well, the thing that I had in my mind was, in terms of creating a relationship, I felt like I was doing a pretty good job of focusing on what I wanted. And then I encountered this person that was everything I absolutely don't want in a human being. And right down to the fact that it looked like my ex-husband to the T. It was one of those like, okay, why did I draw that? I'm sure I did, but why?
Because every subject is really two subjects, wanted and the absence of what is wanted. And the way you feel is the indicator of which end of the stick is most active. So here's a new statement to lay over that. As you hear this and get what we mean by it, it's going to set you free on so many things. When you say what you don't mean, the universe hears what you do mean. So that's like saying, if you feel deprived of a relationship and you're making strong statements of a relationship's coming and I'll know it when I see it, as sort of trying too hard thing, then every time you say a relationship is coming, you're just continuing the path of least resistance that you had going. That's why we want you to start fresh every day, get on that high-flying disc, and then. So there are a couple of things that we're encouraging you to do. Lay new pipes, which is think new thoughts, but do it from your high-flying disc. So really what we're saying to you is, if you're going to think about relationships, make sure you're on a high-flying disc before you do it. And if relationships have been a problem for you and you're on your high-flying disc, for a while it will be the reason that you're not on your high-flying disc. Because what will happen is, as you start thinking about what it is you want to think about from this habit of vibration, this momentum that you've already got going, you won't be able to maintain that good feeling and you will know it. Did that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Esther has begun saying to herself, because she hears this and she gets it, she wants to feel good at all costs, so to speak. If I have to not think about that, then I'm willing to not think about that to stay on my high-flying disc. How I feel is the thing that matters the most, which means some thoughts, she'll start down the path and she'll think, I've got 17 seconds. I've got 17 seconds to either commit to that or to make another decision. She said to a friend the other day, there's something I want to tell you and I have 17 seconds to do it in. So there are a combination of things that we're encouraging you to now do. Do your best to get on the high-flying disc. Do all of your affirming and laying of new pipes from that. And sort of chill out on the other subjects. Don't try so hard. Don't work so hard. Because what you're describing there is evidence of bringing to yourself the very thing that you do not want. Which means when you think about relationship, what's most active in your vibration is the relationship you don't want. Okay. For a lot of people, what's most active in their relationship is absence of a relationship. So every time they talk about it, it's like shooting themselves in the foot, because they just keep grinding away at the old pipe and making a pathway of. And so think about what we said as we began here today. What you think about is causing you to carve out a path of least resistance. So you thought you were carving out a path of least resistance to a relationship that mimicked your new name. New person, new name, new relationship. But without even knowing it, you were carving out a path of least resistance that led you right to the place that you were before that you didn't want to be. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So what to do? Stop thinking about it, because the more you think about that subject, given that's the momentum that you've got going, then the more you're going to carve out the path of least resistance to what you don't want. Do you hear the power in what we're saying? What we're really saying is stop thinking about your issues for a while, because your issues have momentum going. And every time you're thinking about the issue and trying to turn it around, you just carve out the path of least resistance or the path of more allowing to the thing that you do not want. So that's why we want you to get on the high-flying discs. That's why we want you to do things that make it easy for you to feel good. That's why we want you to hang around with people that are fun to be with. That's why we want you to do anything and everything you can that helps you to do the only thing that really matters, which is gain control. It only takes about 30 days of your own vibrational frequency. Gain control of what your point of attraction is. And then, once you know you've got control, then you can go back and address some of these issues without it taking you from your high-flying disc. So, we've been saying for a while, we'll be really brief, that let's say you have 10 things let's say you have 5 things that are important to your life experience. And 4 of them are going extremely well, and 1 of them couldn't be going worse. You usually think about that one that's going worse. It's the one you give the most airtime to because you're problem solvers. But that's the last thing that you should be doing, because that's causing you to carve out a path of no resistance or a path of least resistance to more things like that. And if you do it long enough, then the 4 things that were going well will start misbehaving just like the one thing that is not going well, because you let that be the basis of your vibration, and then that's the basis of your point of attraction, and then everything starts acting like that. On the other hand, you could have 4 things that are going badly and 1 thing that's going well, and you could focus on the 1 thing that's going well, and that could be the path that you're carving out. You see what we're getting at?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't want to make too much of all of this. What we really want to say to you is, you've done enough thinking to keep yourselves busy creatively for 20 or 30 lifetimes. You've put enough in your vortex. You've sifted through enough contrast. Now it's time for you to focus on step 3. Now it's time for you to get on that high-flying disc and let the universe yield to you on every subject that's important to you the manifestational evidence that is a vibrational match to this high-flying disc that you have discovered. And you're going to come away from a few days of applying this feeling your true power. And things that have been bothering you just don't bother you so much. You'll find yourself listening to someone talking about something that you used to join in on, and it will feel insignificant to you, because it is. And then when you start recognizing that this invincibility is really yours, then, as our friend was asking earlier, then you begin to want to deliberately focus upon things that are of interest to you. In other words, to have accomplished that high-flying disc and then find a subject that is interesting to you and give it your undivided attention, non-resisted attention. Seeing those subjects that interest you take on new shape and form and depth and breadth is the most exhilarating part of life experience. And that's what you all came for. That's what you all came for. You said, I want rich contrast that inspires big desires, and I want enough evidence to make me want to gain control of my vibration, and then I will exercise my knowledge that my point of power is right here in my present. And I will stand here practiced and ready for the awareness of all of the good things that I've attracted. Ooh, really good.
Hi, Abraham. I don't want to go into the blah, blah, blah. I want your help moving up to get to a higher
we really don't want to move up. You were born there. You have the potential of waking up there, and moving up is just more work than it's worth. Now hear it. Hey, Ram, are you not going to help her? No. Because if we effort to move up, we just do path of least resistance in those old pipes. And we're at a new place of understanding, aren't we?
So what do I do? Do I feel it? Do I be it? What do I?
You find a different subject. If you can find a subject where we can rendezvous on the high-flying disc, then we'll start there. And if you can't, then in the morning, you see, the reason that you are the perfect person to call forward, everybody relates, is because what this audience is screaming at us in their minds is, Abraham, enough with the high-flying disc stuff. How do we get on? How do we get on? Right. And we want to say to you, a much more important question than how do we get on is when. Because if you're on a low-flying disc, that's not the time to try to get on the high-flying disc. It's more work than it's worth, and it will just frustrate you and contribute to your feeling of unworthiness and inability to do it. So The time to try to get on the high-flying disc is when you're the most fresh, or when something wonderful is going on, or when you've stumbled onto it just by some freak of nature, you see. Law of attraction is yielding plenty of things to you. So the question is, how do I get on the high-flying disc? And the more important question is, when do I get on it? And the answer is, when contrast or not feeling good is least evident. So that has to make you a little frustrated with us, because it's like we're saying you can't get there from there.
Right.
But we're saying you can't get there from there right now because the vibrational frequency is so far apart, and the probability of just reinforcing what you don't want is greater than reinforcing what you do want. Do you get that? The way that we've talked about this in the past has been, the things that you don't care that much about come easily. The things you really care about are harder. And the reason is because the things you care the most about, you've thought the most about from a resistant stance. Then we tell the story. It's our favorite story. Esther's on the telephone with a woman who is struggling with something. We'd been talking with her for quite a while, and we knew that it was a telephone consultation back in the days when Esther was doing that. We knew that there was not enough time to turn it around. So we said, let's talk about some other things. Like what? Well, like butterflies and blue glass and feathers. So annoying. Why? She said. Well, because they're a different vibrational frequency than this issue that you're talking about. I know, but I want to talk about the issue. Just humorous. Let's talk about butterflies and blue glass and feathers. Well, she was annoyed, and the conversation ended, and nothing much came of it, because she didn't want to talk about butterflies and blue glass and feathers. But Esther and Jerry were in La Jolla, and they went down to have lunch at George's, and when they got out of the car in front of the Valencia Hotel, Esther saw a shop that was just calling her with such power. Now that, in and of itself, is not an unusual thing. But it was stronger than ever. And Esther said, oh, please, 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 let's just go in here just for a little bit. I just really want to see what's in here. So she sort of dragged Jerry, kicking and screaming. He had not heard the conversation, the telephone consultation. And they got in the back of the shop, and there was a wall of blue glass. Shelf after shelf after shelf of blue glass art, all different textures. Some you could see through and some you could not. It was amazing. And Esther did not even make the correlation. They didn't want any blue glass. They just saw blue glass. So then they came out of the shop, and they went down the street a little further, and they went to George's, and they had a wonderful lunch. And then they walked down to the Cove, which is their favorite place on earth. It's the most beautiful place, Jerry said, where the land meets the sea. It's just so beautiful. So they're walking across this grassy area, and as they were walking across, a flurry of butterflies surrounded them that was so dense they had to stop talking so that they didn't eat them. And Esther still didn't think of it. She wasn't making the correlation. And then a little boy came running across the lawn, just a little boy, and he had something in his hand, and he was running right to them like he knew them, and he handed it to Esther, and it was a feather that he'd picked up off. And at that moment, then Esther realized that they had seen the blue glass, and they had experienced the butterflies, and now here is someone bringing her a feather within a very short time of activating that in her vibration. So this is the thing that we want you to realize, is that if you can start fresh with something that you feel light about, because if you're efforting about something, you'll never get on the high-flying disc. So you have to pick the subjects that are light enough that you can be there, and stay light enough, long enough that you can establish that as your vibration, at least this vibration, for as long as you can. This is my vibration. This is my point of attraction. And then notice what happens. And there will come a time when you will have the most difficult issue of your lifetime occur to you in the middle of your high-flying disc time, and you will resolve it in seconds. As Esther did. You will resolve it in seconds. Talk about shining a light on the subject. Talk about seeing through the eyes of source. Talking about utilizing the energy that creates worlds and pointing it in the direction of what matters to you, you see. Really, you're going to really like this. Okay?